packages. First, though, we are talking first dates and summer dating with Rozah Krogh, who is a life coach, love coach, does NLP, does everything, and she has written a book called The Architect of Love, Your Perfect Relationship. Starts here, and she should know because you've been married for 17 years, 4 children.
Yes.
Any animals?
2 cats.
2 cats.
A whole
lovely.
menagerie of fish. An aquarium full of fish.
Right. Favourite fish?
The ones that die.
No, that's just mean. Take us through The Architect of Love then, because you've decided that what it is you need to build love like a house. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, as people would say, a lot of people know love is you can't really describe love, is it? It is something that's so abstract. But yeah, it's a subject that everyone needs to learn about. I mean, from children to adults, we're always looking for love. We're always looking to be loved. It's one of the most primary needs of our life, besides food, water, and air. So I thought, why not make it into a subject that you can study? And I love property business. I love houses. I have a thing for architecture, buildings, bridges, anything to do with design. And I thought, let's make it into a book that you can study about. So The Architect of Love is born.
And you've written the first chapter is you fall in love with how a house looks rather than whether it's got a utility room or an ensuite in the guest bedroom. And similarly, when you meet someone new, rightly or wrongly, the primary focus is on appearance rather than political preferences or shoe size. And that is part of the problem, isn't it? Because sometimes you can find a really mean-spirited person in a very handsome package or a very beautiful package.
Exactly.
And you don't notice something that's under your nose because the package is perhaps not what you wanted or not what you thought you wanted.
Exactly. I mean, the chapter 1 is actually just part of how you envision your soulmate or your potential partner to be like. I mean, when we build a house, we don't just think in our minds really what it should look like. We also think how many bedrooms it's going to have. Is it open plan? Is it a Victorian style home? Is it attached cottage?
How are we going to live in it, really?
Exactly. So the book is actually, I break the book down into the home because even like foundation of your home, that refers to something else in the relationship, which is actually a spiritual connection. So we don't just look at one aspect of a person before we fall in love. We look at everything about the person.
Yeah.
We feel.
And you've got lots of spaces where you can write about what's happened in your own life. So
yes.
that you can move forward from that and perhaps maybe even see a connection.
Exactly.
Let us talk then about first dates. How do you make a first date go well? And would you say that you might as well bail if you suddenly discover that there is something about them that you will never in a million years be able to cope with?
Well, I always say before you can make a first date go really well, you have to prepare. Just like the scouts say, right? Preparation is the key. So first of all, you need to know, of course, besides his or her name, where they're coming from, how old they are, things like. If you got any information about, something really a quirky thing about them, you can go and do a bit of Google research, find out, what does it means in his job or her job? What can you do to ask, questions that make the date more interesting? Like their hobbies, for example, find out a little bit more about it. And if you think there's something about that person that you might not like, I always say be open-minded because you might just be surprised.
Right. So, for example, have you got examples of people that you've helped and they've said, do you know?
Well, I was raised as a Muslim and I decided to say yes to a date during one of the periods in the decades where you say you should never date a Jewish guy. I did. I said yes to him. And you know what? My life was a lot richer for saying yes to those dates with this Jewish guy from Israel because it opened his mind that actually, hey, you know what? Muslim girls are not so bad after all. They're not the boogie women we've been taught to believe in Israel. And so we created a beautiful friendship because of that, even though it didn't really go anywhere after that. But I learned a lot more about the Israeli, the Jewish culture, the religion, and how actually they're just like me. They're just like all of us. So something like that, for example, it's just being open-minded.
And, of course, if you discover that you don't particularly necessarily want the relationship to continue with whatever your first date is, as you say, you can make them into a friend and then they have other friends who might introduce you.
Exactly. You are so right, Penny. Exactly. The connection, the networking, that's what we want.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I think that sometimes we think we want a certain thing, and then really we probably don't. I would say that the vast majority of, for example, my female friends, they say they want somebody who's good looking enough,
Yes.
who's rich enough, who's done this, and then when they find that, they discover that actually that's not really what they want, because
not all cracked
the
up to
richer
be.
somebody is, then the more
Yes.
likely they are to want to get their own way, or the perhaps sometimes they've had life so easy that they are not willing to compromise on anything. There's give and take in all of these situations.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, as I mentioned in my book, it's about actually knowing exactly who you are first. What do you want? Where did you come from? And where you came from will tell you what you need in the future. That's why you need to be very specific. People always think, I can't be too fussy about who I want to go for. But on the other hand, not being fussy in love gets you into a lot of trouble, into a lot of mistakes. Just because you think, I like a guy who's good looking, he's got a good job, he earns good money, but actually he's a very controlling man.
Yeah.
Would you like that? No, you won't.
He's not funny. Maybe
Exactly.
you like somebody who's really funny. Maybe you want to wake up every morning with a giggle.
Exactly. You might meet a James Corden, and within 18 months with you, he turns out to be Brad Pitt. You know, if you take a chance, because he's got the best sense of humor, he wants to work on himself, he's hardworking, he loves you to bits, he absolutely adores you. It might turn out that he's your Brad Pitt that you've been looking for, you think.
As you go through the book, you get towards the end, and we've already gone through the layout of your house.
Yes.
And
then we go into the hard furnishing, and then we go into the soft furnishing.
House. Yes, the soft furnishings.
That's the fun chapter.
And the bedrock to happiness. Tell me about the bedrock to happiness.
That actually signifies your spiritual strength, your connection with your potential partner. Because as we know in architecture, a home may be beautiful, it may build, you can be a sky tower or a thatched cottage, but if you live in an area where it's prone to earthquakes or mudslides, if your foundation is not strong, that home can be wiped out in a second. If you've seen in a lot of like the tsunamis or whatever, it's the home with the strongest, deepest foundation are the ones that last. So that refers to your spiritual connection with your partner. It doesn't mean religion. If you have shared religion, that's great. But if you have shared moral values, faith in something that you both can hold on to in times of trouble, i.e. like tsunamis, that to me is like, when outside forces are trying to break you apart, or a cancer, or, illnesses, or job loss, all these.
Yeah. What throughout this, there does seem to be, you come back to how you grow up.
Yes.
And the influence of your parents.
Yes.
Does it seem to be better if, for example, you have parents who row a lot, who never cuddled you because they were too busy rowing or whatever else? Does that mean you're better off with somebody who also has a similar background?
Not necessarily. At the end of the day, I always say you need to learn from your past. If you're used to parents who are, who row a lot, and you don't grow up with a lot of cuddles and a lot of love, the first step is to realize, is that right for me? Did my past, was that something I'm happy with? Do I want a partner who had the same, but then he himself never learned that past was maybe not right for them? But if you meet someone who come from a family that's very loving, that was me. My father used to abuse my mother, used to beat her up. But at a young age, I realized that was not the right thing to do. I did not want a partner who came from that background. So my husband came from a very loving, 2 children, parents together, holidays all the time. And he absolutely loved me without any condition. He was hugging me a lot. He cuddles me, he kisses me without being asked to. And I thought, this is what I wanted, because I knew my past was not the right beginning for me. So I chose to change my future.
Yeah. And it says in your book that you love cooking up a storm in the
Yes.
kitchen, feeding happiness to family and friends, and you like going and laughing at comedy shows and fairs, and getting muddy at music festivals.
Yes.
If it's Glastonbury, it's almost always muddy. It seems to be that time of year.
Last year was really bad. I'm very ashamed to admit we left on Sunday morning because we couldn't take and we brought our kids along, so it was like, no, it was not fun anymore. It was just raining all the time, and I thought, I'm sorry, Glastonbury, I'm going to have to give up on you on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
And so we went home.
But you don't give up on your family.
No.
Hip Hop on Glastonbury instead. Thank you very much, Ernico, who is a love coach, and the book The Architect of Love, Your Perfect Relationship Starts Here is out now. The time is coming up to 10:15. It's cocktails next.
Talk Radio, 24-hour radio debate and entertainment.
Thank you so much.